Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, and today I'm hanging out with.
Nerdarchis Dave.
And today we present 5 traps that put the deadly and devious in D&D.
Hey guys, jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
All right, so we got this list, this idea for 5 deadliest traps.
And Devious. Do not forget the Devious part.
So a while ago, I actually think it's on a live gameplay video, way back in the day. I actually used a trap where it was deadly and devious because it was in a dragon's lair where the dragon has access to kobold minions, and the trigger for the actual trap was designed to be set off by the monsters itself. So if you've got, your nice little tunnel, somewhere there's going to be a pressure plate. And the kobold, goblin, whatever you feel like using, steps on it. And from the sides, from the walls, blades will spring out and attack whoever is there. But it's designed to go over the monsters' heads, so your NPCs are just fine while your PCs are being damaged by the trap. That's your NPC set off.
Right. Well, you know what? It's actually better if they kind of don't set them off. Because if it's like pressure plated so that the weight of someone else is doing it, if the players chase them, they're going to run into the traps.
There is that as well.
So they're not tipped off by the kobolds stepping on the pressure plate, and then they see and go, oh, wait a minute, I should stop. Because in theory, that's probably what should happen. You could do that with darts, arrows, and anything. Like you said, anything above their head. You could use mists or maybe even fog or anything like that comes out at a level that's higher, and it's something that's light, so it rises instead of falling to the ground where your NPCs are.
So if you've got that halfling that's joined the adventuring party, he's going to be safe. But even your dwarf is going to be tall enough to be affected by this deadly trap.
Yeah, if you have gnomes, halflings, goblins, or kobolds, they're good to go. Everyone else is kind of boned, and it is kind of nice though to have those little players where it's like it finally like their size is working for them, so it's kind of like a nice thing for them as well.
And I actually had a short race.
It was a gnome. Yeah, because he was using the bow and taking disadvantage. He was using longbow.
That's right.
I do remember because he had the oath bow. So there's that. There's also I think you had on your list. You mentioned something about vipers and a pit and bones.
Well, you've used something similar to.
I did. I figured I'd weigh in with my variant.
Absolutely. So the one that's there is you've got a snake pit trap, and it's just it's hazardous terrain on the bottom if you make it all the way down there because there's so many piles of bones that are there. But then you've got the snakes that are writhing around and somewhat hiding in there, and they're going to be able to bite you and poison you. And
so basically, essentially, the idea is standard covered pit. They missed a perception, fail a saving throw, whatever. They fall into it. They take the falling damage,
of course,
and now they're in a pit of snakes. Basically, they use the snakes. I would use a snake swarm for it, and now they're taking damage from the snakes. Like you said, it's difficult terrain. Not that there's very far for them to go anyway to move around, but they do have to definitely deal with that.
Right.
Now, in the Maze of Mandoon, if you choose the wrong door, which you always choose the wrong door, you do fall in a pit, and as you fall in a pit, a swarm of flying snakes springs forth and attacks the person that triggered the trap, and they hit hard.
They do.
My first fan kill was from the flying snakes. Fortunately, it was at the very last encounter, and then the rest of the players had to take on the Minotaur, and they won, but not by a lot. It was a tough fight. So it was a good deal. So yeah, flying snakes or even regular or a snake swarm at the bottom of a pit, and even so, you can hide them underneath the bones, like you said, so that they don't see them in case maybe someone misses. They spring the trap, but they don't fall in, and they're like, oh, there's bones in there. That means
treasure.
Yeah, and you could literally do that. You could put rings on the fingers or something to lure them down, and maybe there's a perception check. And maybe the snakes are dormant a lot of times, so they sleep under the bones and they don't get disturbed. Could even be a magical effect that puts them to sleep.
Yeah, very very possibly. And the presence of another creature is what
Awakens
them.
Yes, absolutely.
So next we have a labyrinthine underground lake or waterway that has a slow acting confusion poison, as per the spell, dissolved in it. So you essentially you've got this waterway that looks perfectly normal, and the players have to cross it. You're gonna have the issue of the current they're gonna have to face, which might mean they have to move through it slowly or whatever have you. They get in it. Now all of a sudden you have this magical effect happening. Either they're burning or they're confused. And then let's throw some swimming monsters in it that somehow are not affected by this
Well, I
standard.
believe confusion is a charm effect, so you could just use monsters that are not affected by charm.
Mhm.
You know, you can figure out whatever they are, or you know, I think you even mentioned something about incorporeal creatures
Mhm.
that you know technically might not be affected by poison or anything with poison immunity too. If you
Yeah.
decide if you make it a poison,
Right.
you could do that, and then yeah, like they're constantly being bombarded by this confusion effect, which is going to make any encounter they come across much more difficult.
Thing you have to watch out with poisons is your halflings, your dwarves, and your Yuan-Ti, purebloods.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are letting Yanti pour purebloods in their game anyway. It's one of the few things that even I go, well, I don't know about that one.
That I think is so far the tops of the. Yeah, should that really be in the game?
Yeah, I at that point I might be like, how about you be a dragonborn that's immune to that has poison resistance and does the poison attack? It's close enough.
All right. So the next one we have is an electric sword that was sealed in a dark crypt with decomposed items. So you've essentially got a magical or alchemical item that springs out with explosive gas.
So I guess the idea is like perhaps a chamber full of methane or something like that, where it's actually could be like actually just be a natural gas that
Mhm.
isn't detectable by your players. You know, like they might be able to make a perception check to see that you know a cobweb or something is being kind of moved or blown, so they might detect the air current. But
Mhm.
you know, natural gas itself doesn't actually have a smell.
Right.
So you could definitely do something like that, and I would do something like the king in the throne or something like that with the sword at his across his lap, something like that. And the sword is actually a magical sword, and it basically the flame tongue of lightning, but the first time someone picks it up, it sparks.
Which causes the whole area to.
Well, it could literally just be a flame tongue too, you know.
Well, that's.
But yeah, and if it does that, then yes, it ignites the whole room, and everyone gets flash fried.
So would you give disadvantage on that saving throw, or would you just?
I think I would just make it a regular saving throw,
Okay.
and they either make it or they don't. Like, I guess it's more of like, do they drop to the ground at the last minute? Do they try and like pull the body over top of them? Something like, come on, let's face it, you're in the center of a fireball. You don't get a disadvantage on your
That's
deck
true.
save, and it's 20 foot. You're not getting out of that, in an instant. So,
That's very true.
it's kind of like it's one of those things, in fifth edition and just these games in general. You're like hand wave it.
There is a lot of times that you have to sit there and kind of accept. All right, this is a crazy world where magic exists. We've got these heroes, and there's times that no matter what you do, as the DM, they're successful. And it's like that doesn't make sense. How did that happen?
Oh, actually, I'll get into that at the end. I have a thought, but I'll get into it at the end.
All right, so the last one we have is a hallway filling with acid after the doors to the front and back slam down, but there's a little spot at the top where you might be able to squeeze through. This is I don't know. So there's a thing in here for more if you want to have it, far more deadly. Yeah, you can go and try and deal with these doors that have slammed shut. But if you try to actually go through this small hole, it's a sphere of annihilation. I would avoid things like that, but
Well, so okay, it depends on how grognard you want to go. I think like so. Basically, it really is just a rip off of Tomb of Horrors from first edition, where it's like there's the grinning demon maw. You can climb through it. Well, you find plenty of room in this sphere of annihilation. Oh, spoilers, by the way, if anyone isn't familiar with that. The thing with the sphere of annihilation in Tomb of Horrors is most people can't fit in it. Where I actually like this idea of some kind of statue or grinning monster with an open maw that someone could squeeze through, and you could definitely do something like that, or just make it part of the trap, right? Like maybe the person that made this trap has a bit of a sense of humor, and not in a good way. So it's this dragon with an open maw or gargoyle or whatever. It doesn't matter. Well, as soon as you begin crawling through, it clamps shut. Not once you're inside, once you're halfway inside.
oh,
So it pins you, so that that you're gonna get killed. And maybe even like you could do several different things with this. Like one is you could have a pile of things that are not dissolvable by acid at the base of the statue, so that there's like a clue. If you're saying the acid isn't strong enough to actually dissolve the bones, then there could actually be a pile of bones. There could be a bone in its mouth. You could say maybe they see something reflecting off the torchlight down its gullet. Further back in its gullet that they might want to check out.
right.
Like this could literally just be a trap all by itself, where they crawl. You can check in there, but you're gonna actually have to like crawl in there up to your waist to really get a look around and
Right.
pow. So you could do this in conjunction with the acid. You could have it be a sphere of annihilation in the mouth, and I feel like the more savvy players are gonna be like, "That's too easy. I'm not crawling in there." Especially if it's like right into the wall where like, oh, this could actually lead to safety. But why did they make this room that fills with acids and shuts the doors with this hole that I can crawl through? So you could technically kind of do that, and it wouldn't be completely a dick move, because if they're foolish enough to go, I'm going to try and crawl through that anyway, they might have earned that one.
Yeah, I know. I've probably been foolish enough to, or I'm probably a foolish enough player that I'm not always thinking about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would climb in there.
You're like, I would absolutely climb in there. All right, so we have the Viper Pit, we have the Electric Sword, we have the Confusion River, we have
the hallway of acid, and the blades over the small creatures' heads.
Okay, so that gives us 5. Now the nice thing about all these traps, they're scalable. They're absolutely scalable. You can raise or lower the DCs, raise or lower the damage. You can make any of them work for whatever you need.
Yeah, if you look at your DMG, there literally is a place that there's a spot that talks about damage per CR, or damage per tier, I guess you could call it. And then it's scalable of, okay, well, do you want this to be mild? Do you want this to be deadly? And it was like, literally, it's like, oh, this is 20 die 10.
Yeah, it kind of tells you how much damage it should do, where the DC should be at. So it does definitely give you an idea. The monster traps are a little bit harder to figure out, because you have to figure out, well, you figure out the encounter, and you're like, well, how much harder is this making the encounter for my players? There's a huge difference between using a snake swarm and a swarm of flying snakes, because flying snakes actually only come in one variety, and they hit really hard, even though they can't take a hit.
But they only do 1 point of damage.
Oh yeah, there is only that. Plus 3 die 4 poison. And just make them all Ranger Beast companions, so they get a proficiency bonus to damage. But yeah, so these are all things that you're going to want to take into consideration. I think they get flyby attack too.
It's possible.
So these are all things you want to take into consideration. But the nice thing about these type of traps, you can do something interesting, challenge your players, whether they're first level or 20th level. This could be added to the game. And if they're 20th level, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't make that a sphere of annihilation and maybe an anti-magic zone. I don't know.
You mean otherwise your wizard's like, oh, I'll just teleport.
Yeah, pretty much. You have to do something, or actually spellcasting triggers a different kind of trap.
Yeah,
the whole room becomes a sphere of annihilation at that point. Sphere of Annihilation bath.
So what do you guys think? Do you have any awesome traps that you want to share or weigh in on how these ones are? Put your thoughts down below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out over on Facebook.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.